Hello and welcome to yet another off-grid video. This is going to be a video of bits and pieces, just little tricks. They can be applied anywhere, but they're just tricks I've learned over years, and starting mostly with when I rebuilt my bus with the help of old Bill, who features in a few of my stories. He taught me a number of tricks, and I've learned a number of tricks since then, and I'm going to share some of them with you today. Now, this video is going to be bits and pieces because the nature of what I try and film can only be done over periods of time, or some of it can. So you may see me with a beard, clean shaven, with a hat, without a hat, with sunglasses, without sunglasses, you know, all those kind of variables. Okay, so today, yeah, right, let's crack on. Well, a few weeks ago I helped put this up. It's a bought-in thing, made of panels, and you've just got to erect it. But for some reason my helper didn't bother putting those screws in the bottom there when I left. So this bit was sticking out below the bottom, below here. So I needed to find a way to push that in on my own. So what I've done, and you can do this with loads of things, is to use blocks and levers. So this was where it was sticking out here. So what I've done is I've used the tree, and I've just wedged, I found this stump, and I've just wedged some things behind it so you can't move that way. And I've put blocks against where I'm pushing, a long one, so because the length will transfer all your pushing weight all the way along. That helps in two ways. One is it pushes a force all the way along the whole thing, and which stops you from causing any damage by it ripping. Then what I did, I put another block so that I could reach a lever. Then I used this. The longer the bar, the greater the leverage, and I levered it, and it pushed it in. And then I realized if I let go that it was going to likely to spring out again. So what I've done is I've used what was there, which is this bit there, which was handy, and I've put in a wedge of an old table leg. Tapered wood is really handy for using for wedges. Like there's a tapered bit that I've put in just to fill that angled gap, and I was planning to just hit loads of wedges in there from different angles and close it up until I thought I'll use the lever first. So that is one of my favourites. If you can see from some of my in-house videos, my house is made of blocks and planks. I swear by blocks and planks. And a life of precarious balance. And yeah, so that's the principle. So the longer the bar, the greater the leverage. So this applies for taking any kind of tight nut off, or screw, anything that's tight. If you use a long bar, that means you don't have to actually push as far for it to undo, and it also gives you more force. I failed my physics, but I understand practical things. So that's it in, and then I went inside, drilled some holes because this is soaking wet after weeks of rain, and put some screws in to hold it down. So there you go. So that's this part. Another thing that I tend to do is I tend to use what's lying around. So for example, when I move into a place, I already use whatever fixing holes are there to put my stuff in or on, and you know, adjust it accordingly, change it, but as long as it suits what I want, then that's fine. And this same thing applies to these compost heaps here. I've got to build another one because that had to be demolished to make room for that. But so what we've done here is just used old doors, pallets, bits of wood, bits of metal, bar and things just to hold it down. Now we did have planks and planks of old decking, and because the decking was ripped up, but we've used every single bit of it now for various things. For example, there's some of it here. There's one. What that's doing is that's holding some of the logs in this woodshed up. And while I'm here, I'll give you some advice on wheelbarrows. Don't go cheap. Cheap is that you flush it away. What you want is ones that are light with a good wheel that runs, light but solid, but also one of the most important things, especially if you're on a slope, and that is to have these bits, the stand, as wide as they can be. So you want a wide one, a wide tray, and these need to splay out, because otherwise on a slope, as soon as you've got some weight in it, it will fall over. Same with uneven ground, it doesn't even need to be a slope. They fall over so easy if they're not splayed. Don't go for cheap. And this is a cheap, you can see the difference there. See that splay? No good, because it virtually comes down the side and then goes straight down. Whereas this one, you can see the splay there. And see the difference. I mean, sure, this is on level ground, but take my word for it, there's nothing worse than being tired. You've got your last load and it's really heavy, you've put it on the barrow, you turn away to get the last bits and turn around and the barrow's fallen over. So yeah, don't ever go for cheap. That shed was also quite cheap, relatively. Never do it. It doesn't work in the long run. So that ends the section on wheelbarrows. Let's talk about buying tyres on a budget. For many years, what I used to do was I'd go and buy the cheapest tyre. But what I tended to notice was after a couple of weeks, they'd be showing a bit of a bulge there. And I drive down a lot of rickety tracks. And I mean rickety, potholey tracks. But what I've done recently is instead of buying the cheapest, I've bought the next cheapest up. And what I've found, I mean, if you can see on these, there's no bulge, the pressures are all up, there's no slackness, they're quite firm. So if you're on a budget, I would recommend that you don't buy the cheapest tyres, but you buy the second cheapest, and they'll be fine, or at least they are for me. And here's one of the rickety tracks. been reminded of something that I wanted to discuss. If you look at the stone, wet, bit of moss, but I mean that's like an ice rink. Now that's one of the dangers outside when it gets wet. Certain stone just becomes so slippy. So, as well as be careful where you walk, there is one thing that is really useful. You walk with your toe first. Put your toes down first before your heel. So toe, heel, and that way you have more control, because you put your toes down, and if it's slippy, you've still got the weight on the other foot. But if you put your heel down and that goes, you haven't got that flexible movement with your ankle, and so you're more likely to slip over. I know it's a lot easier to go toe heel down steps, but if you almost walk on tiptoes, because when you do slip, at least you've got time to put your heel down, whereas if you put your heel down first and you slip, you haven't got time to do anything else, so you've got less control if you slip. So it's a useful tip for everybody, but especially younger people and people who are older, as well as people working in a garden, because since it's wet and slippy, just do things a little bit slower. And one of the most dangerous places to slip up is when turning corners. That's when you turn the corner and away you go. So yeah, so there's a useful tip. Toe, heel, and just take extra care. Think about your walking, and that way I think you can prevent yourself slipping. I've had stupid slips. In my youth I used to have massive mishaps and stupid accidents, and I've learnt from those, and so I know the signs now, so I'm just a little bit careful. Thanks for watching. Ta-da!